Hi, and welcome to the Brisbane Professionals Podcast. This is a podcast brought to you by SMS Law, going through the legal secrets that will benefit you and your clients, as well as having a little bit of fun as we go. This podcast is designed to educate you on, number one, complicated legal terms that we will explain in an easy to understand manner. Two, to understand why you do things from a legal perspective in your business. And three, to help you develop a plan for the future success of your business. Our mission is to help empower small to medium-sized businesses around the world to get access to legal advice so that they can help build their communities and make the world a better place. Did you know that any business owner is on average 7 months away from losing everything? That is the average time that it takes from a successful business to fold when an aspect of their business is not set up correctly. This podcast is all about empowering you and your business with knowledge and tools to ensure that that doesn't happen to you or to your clients. Let's begin, shall we?
Hi everyone, welcome to the Brisbane Professional Podcast. I am Craig Mason. I have with me Jeremy Stratton. Say hello to everyone, please, Jeremy.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the show.
Absolutely. What a great day it is today. We are talking about, in today's show, an earn-out agreement. And specifically, what goes into a good earn-out agreement. So there can be bad earn-out agreements, and there could be good earn-out agreements. So, we want to touch on that today. Jeremy, what is an earn-out agreement and when should you actually use one?
That's a great question, Craig. And an earn-out agreement is something that's used usually when someone's selling a business and they want a higher price than the buyer's willing to pay, or that the buyer doesn't have someone to come in and operate the business. So what the buyer will do is that they will pay more for the business if you stay in and work in the business. So it might be that, if you're selling a business for $1 million and you think it's worth $2 million, sometimes people will, or buyers will agree to pay that $2 million if you reach certain targets, or if you do certain things in the business. So they're tools that can be used to increase purchase prices, and they can also be used if you want to sell a business to get out of it, but the other buyer can't go straight into the business straight away. Then you can have an earn-out agreement where the person can work in the business for a bit of time. So there's different ways of doing it, but they're the two most common ways that we see people using earn-out agreements. There are risks with it, obviously, because you've got to reach certain goals. And we'll talk about, Craig's going to talk a bit about the obligations of the person, subject to the earn-out agreement, and I'll talk about the buyer's obligations. But it's really important to think about these things properly and get them drafted right, so that you're not getting any problems with them that haven't been thought through. So Craig, do you want to go through the obligations for the person entering into the earn-out agreement for the sale of their business?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Jeremy said, you're going to be there still as the seller. So you've got obligations within that the buyer will want you to comply with. Most of the time there'll be almost an employment agreement with you where you're employed to do certain things. There's going to be KPIs associated with that as well that you need to reach, because the whole point of it is you'll have to reach a particular target, and that's where it kicks in, where there could be other money that's changing hands. So your obligations are to try to reach that, to do as much as you can within the business to suit the employment agreement. So it's you're used to having full control over it, obviously, and you're doing all what you want to do. In this instance, you've got certain obligations that you need to reach within that to satisfy the buyer and to satisfy the earn-out agreement to then reach that next stage. So you've got to be wary of your obligations. These agreements are not for everyone. You need to consider it. As Jeremy said, there are risks involved. So you want to make sure you're aware of your obligations, that you're happy with those obligations, and you can live with those obligations. There's normally a time frame, or there will be a time frame of 6 or 12 months, whatever it might be, or even longer. And you've got to be confident that you can essentially do that new role for that period of time and reach those targets. So plenty of obligations you need to think about. As I said, they're not for everyone, but just be aware of those when you're agreeing to it. So they're the sorts of seller's obligations. Jeremy, what would be the buyer's obligations in that instance?
Yeah, so really the buyer's putting a lot of trust in the seller to continue operating the business. And so the buyer's obligations are to basically run the business and to make sure that everything's funded properly, and to make sure that everything operates properly so that you've got the best chance of achieving those goals. Now, sometimes it can be in the buyer's best interest to not do that, so you need to make sure that in any earn-out agreement that it's documented that it is, that they've got to take all reasonable steps to help you achieve those goals. And really a buyer, with an earn-out agreement, really, for the vast majority of them need to get out of the way to let you actually operate the business. And that can be hard because they've just spent a lot of money on buying the business. And it's one of the reasons why, personally, I don't particularly like earn-out agreements. They seem to be a recipe for massive arguments down the track because the buyer's interests and the seller's interests aren't really aligned. The buyer doesn't really want to pay more for the business, but the seller wants more for the business, and they're both pulling different strings within the business. So I think it's a bit of a risky proposition to do it. However, a lot of people still do it, and it is successful in a lot of cases. So just think through what the buyer's got to do and make sure that that's all properly defined. And the most important one, though, is just making sure that they're in there to help you operate the business, and they've got an obligation to fund whatever you need to happen in the business going forward. So Craig, that's what we've got for going into a good earn-out agreement.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jeremy. It definitely is an interesting sort of dynamic there, the earn-out agreement between the buyer and the seller. And as you said, different strings have been pulled for different motives. So definitely something you need to, put a lot of thought into before you agree to it. All right, so that is today's show about what goes into a good earn-out agreement, or what the sorts of things you need to consider before you enter into it. So that is it for us today. Please, as a favour to the show, if you could rate and review the podcast, we would appreciate that. And if you would also like to like the SMS Law Facebook page, follow us on Twitter. Search for Jeremy and I on LinkedIn and connect through those platforms. That'd be great as well. We share content on that, and we can engage with our listeners and viewers on that as well. And you can ask questions, etc. So please do that as well. So yeah, that's it. Thanks. We'll see you next time.
See you next.